All righty. Hey there, my name is Sheena, and I'm here with these lovely ladies, and we are here to talk about cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation in this particular panel for Dragon Con. So, ladies, thank you guys so much for joining me. I'd like for you all to introduce yourself. We'll start with Shay Rains. Introduce yourself and what you do.
I'm Shay Rains. I am a licensed mental health professional, and I'm also a nerd in all of the nerd spaces, and I'm Black. So there here we go, and sometimes we get appropriated.
Okay. Cece the Geek, you're next.
That reminds me of a panel that I had a panelist, Panama Jackson, and he listed himself as a professional Black person. So I like I like that. So, but thank you so much. Some people know me as Cece the Geek. Some people know me as Chana Lawson. I am also a Black person, founder and CEO of HBCU Con, and a cosplayer, activist, philanthropist. That's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Moana.
Mahomai kako, everyone. My name is Moana. I am Native Hawaiian. I am a leader in the emerging technology field. I am also the founder and creator of the Moana Nui podcast, a children's book author for the Adventures of Nakoa and Nohea series, as well as the editor and publisher here at Burning Spear Comics for the Wildcard Chronicles.
Awesome. And last but not least, Renee.
Hey everybody, my name is Renee Cooper. You have seen me at Dragon Con because I am a volunteer director of animation track. So you can see me in virtual panels and on site this year. So hi again. I also am I'm a Black person. I'm a professional. I'll say that I'm either both, one or the other, or both at the same time. I've worked in marketing for about 10 years, and I have been going to conventions for about as long as I've had my professional career as well. And a little bit of cosplay, a lot of bit of social media selfies. And I'm really excited to be on this panel with these amazing people.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I would like to start by asking you all, what do you all think cultural appropriation is? So my husband and I, we have a lot of talks about this in our household. And so to us, to me, it's really when you try to profit financially off of another culture. So what is it to you all? Do we share the same definition? You guys can go. Anyone can jump in. Just don't talk over each other.
I like how you first expressed the notion of like making a profit, because that's definitely a key element. And I think it doesn't have to just be monetary. It can be like any social status or clout, as these kids today call it, right? But like anything of that nature. And I think another important element is it's often either not giving credit to the group or groups of people responsible, or you're not investing in them. So like you might be getting a off-brand, Fashion Nova Native American headpiece, or American Indigenous headpiece, and it's like you're not supposed to be wearing that. That's regalia. It's very specific. So that's kind
of I agree. It ties into not doing enough research and not knowing really the depths of I'm going to say in a lot of cases, fashion or personal choice that you're making. Usually it seems to revolve a lot around fashion, possibly because we see things that kind of happen in the music industry and other spaces. But a lot of musicians tend to have a lot of background, I've found, in where their music comes from. But when something's very visual, like fashion or makeup or something that you can, take pictures and post online. It does a lot of times come back to appropriation being they saw something, they quickly wanted to redo it for the likes and for the visual, even if they just like the visuals of it and they don't do enough research, or adding credit to where they pulled it from. So I think a big part is also people not helping appropriation are those who don't even want to, who will defend it without also putting in the extra effort to know where something came from or give credit to it. There's a lot of people who are like, well, they're just doing it because it looks cool and they stop it right there. And that part of an audience is what just adds to appropriation, in my opinion.
And then for me, I want to say it's all of my definition is what everybody else already said, but then I add on the part where the people appropriating it get to be cool or edgy or positive, while the actual group of people who it started with are ostracized or penalized or not professional enough or whatever when they do it. So it's appropriation because it's just like, or like what is, I don't know if it's still ongoing, but like with Twitter, where the black, not Twitter, TikTok, where the black dancers or whatever would be dancing or whatever, and they do their TikTok thing, and then the white kids would come out and they would do it, but the white kids are the ones who actually get the money. Yes, the profit part of it, but then there's also like the history of like, white people with dreads and that argument that causes me.
Ooh, well, we will talk about that. Let me write that in my notes.
Causes me brain problems. And so, yeah, so that's a thing where it's just like Black people are, oh, that's really unprofessional, or it's ghetto, or it's hood, or it's disrespectful, or it's, oh, you're just being contrarian, or whatever the case may be. It is where literally doing something to quote unquote tame, so to speak, your hair so that you can have a better time managing it, whether it's cornrows or whatever, what it is that we do, that doesn't actually involve straightening the hair, is instantly considered unprofessional. But when white people or non-Black people do it, it's just like, oh, that's so cool and cute. And then I get upset. The getting upset part is also a good cue of how you know it's appropriation. Just throwing that out there.
Moana?
So I agree with the profiting aspect and not properly giving respect and credit to those from which it comes. But for me, there's levels to this, and what we've talked about so far are very much the surface symptoms that you see of cultural appropriation. For me, I look at it even more deeper, because where I come from, which is Hawaii, is appropriated and appropriated and appropriated, and it goes to the land, the resources, all of that, right? Like the effects of colonialism that is still very much prevalent today, and not just in Hawaii, globally. But for me, I can speak about Hawaii because it's fresh and I see it every time I step foot back on my islands. I see it getting worse. I see folks taking our land and our resources, our accesses to water, and they block off those accesses for commercial purposes, to the hotel industry, to building a freaking water park on an island that is surrounded by water. I do not understand why you need that. And it further negatively impacts the natives of the communities. There's a large homeless population and it continues to get worse. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, America pays homeless people to leave the continent and to go live in Hawaii, which further exacerbates the problem, right? So these are the types of things that most people probably don't know about, but then they like to point it, like to it's the natives' fault. And it's like,
Right.
no, we were fine before you came here. We lived off of our land, just like all native peoples have over time. But when you take away the access to the water and the central things that are important, then how can you demonize or try to shift the blame onto the people who are already being exploited? So for me, cultural appropriation, like, it can go to so many different levels.
It goes so much deeper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
seems
that
Oh,
what were you gonna say?
Oh no, it's just funny because as you were saying that, I thought of gentrification right before, and you like just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
yeah.
Moana, I would love for you to go more in depth about what's happening in Hawaii and the what's beneath the surface of appropriation there, and how that's affecting the locals. Because I mean, you raised many great points.
Yeah, so I mean, this has been going on since the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom, which happened in the late 1800s, which is actually when a lot of shady shit went down, across the world. It's around the time that, slave owners were being pushed off the continent. And so slavery didn't really go anywhere. It went elsewhere, right? Like a lot of the same players were found in the South Pacific. So a lot of these symptoms have still are very prevalent today. After the overthrow and after the state, Hawaii was voted to become a state by white people. In case people don't know, Native Hawaiians had many thousands of petitions, signed petitions, being against the statehood and becoming a territory and all of those things that happened in our history. But what sadly happened is when white people came, the overthrow happened by an oligarchy, which is essentially 5 white business owners who took over and overthrew the queen. And since then, through very shady methods, continuously rob the people of the land. So a lot of the land was put into trust by previous monarchs into the hands of the people. That's how it always should have been. But the state of Hawaii, over time, has been exploited by external forces and external influences for the love of money. And so there are a lot of Native Hawaiians who sit on these lists to get their access to their native land, that is rightfully theirs. And they have placed blood quantums on it. So,
I'm so sorry. Can you tell me can you tell us what a blood quantum is?
Oh, yes, sorry. So blood quantum essentially means they came up with this criteria that in order to be on this list, to get access to your land, you must have 50% Hawaiian blood.
Oh, okay. So it's like the same thing that they did with the
Native Americans,
continental
college.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, lots of similar practices applied, right, to keep people off of their land.
Great way to steal stuff. Gotcha.
Well, not only that, but you had white people were bribing. That's why they get the term 50-cent Indians, because they paid as little as 50 cents and like, oh, I'm 1/16,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
White people, white people. Got it.
Yes, and that's why I feel like unity amongst Indigenous peoples is so important. Because we're all fighting the same thing.
Facts.
But so there's I even have family members who are still sitting on this list, and they will probably never get access to their land because the amount of land diminishes. It gets sold under quiet title, right? Like it's a lot of complexities in families too. Some of them don't want to fight as much, right, for their land, and so they abscond with their portion. And then, you just never know how it happens, in different families. It just goes on. And some of them are sellouts, to be honest. There was a lot of controversy around the Zuckerberg purchase on my island, where he purchased, 600 acres or whatever it was. And the thing that
Wow.
pisses me off about that is that these rich white people come and they buy our land, but they don't even live there. Like,
Yeah.
you
It's
are
just not-
taking away land for nothing.
Yeah.
Like, just to say you own an like part of an island. Like, what
Didn't
the
he
hell?
like put a whole big old fence around
He
the
sure
edges of his
did.
land? Like
He
he put a
did.
huge
Wow.
fence. Like I remember seeing the picture. Like he put literally a huge fence, like that is like miles away from the actual
Yep.
quote unquote estate,
Mm-hmm.
That
and
sounds
then
like-
left.
Yep.
Wow.
And then wants to prevent access to the beach, which is how Native Hawaiians get their food in, is gathering rights, all of that. You can't own the beach. The
Right.
beach is for the people. So I could go on, and I don't want to like totally
No,
take
thank
over
you.
this panel.
Oh no,
but-
education, love it.
Thank you for that. I didn't know, like, you were talking about they're paying homeless Hawaiians to move to the States. Like, what? That
Yeah,
sounds
that's wow.
crazy
That's
and
wow.
like a conspiracy theory, but I believe you because you're there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
that's
And
your
no,
home.
it's actually the opposite.
The opposite way, yeah.
They're paying white, homeless people from the continent
Right.
to
Oh.
move
So
to the
Hawaii.
islands, which further exacerbates the homeless problem there.
That's what I thought you were saying. 'Cause
Wow.
I
Okay.
remember hearing that around the Olympics time.
Mhm.
I don't remember if it was Olympics Atlanta or Olympics somewhere else, but I did hear that they would just say, here's a ticket to wherever you want. Just get out of our town because we're
Yep.
hosting an event.
Wow.
That's how Australia was created.
Yep.
You're right. You're right. Okay. All right. So, what is appreciation? And I feel like it should be more. I feel like cultural appreciation should be replaced with cultural exchange. But go ahead. What do you guys think? What is cultural appreciation or proper respect to a culture?
So
The word respect is a good way to start.
Mhm.
Just because the problem when I get upset is basically the blatant or not so blatant, 'cause sometimes it's microaggressions. It's really just disrespecting where something came from, and it's when someone says, hey, no, that's my culture, and the defense is, oh, well, white people did this too. And okay, let me back up. Let me retract that statement, because it's not like white people are the only one out there who can be appropriating. It's
This
just
is
that
true.
they're the ones who do it the most.
They're the main offenders. Yeah.
Most. Other people can appropriate too. So when people in general appropriate and they defend their appropriation, instead of just accepting, okay, yes, this is someone else's culture, instead they're arguing, well, what am I supposed to do? Tell my 5-year-old that she can't be a Native American princess? Yes, as a matter of fact, this is exactly what you're supposed to do. Like that's how that works. You teach your kid how to respect other people's cultures. And I think when it comes to actually appreciating it, it goes into how it is that we define the word, which is to actually show respect, show some reverence, show some acknowledgement to the fact of, let's say, for example, if you are going to be, putting on the costume, which is the problem. Our culture isn't a costume. If you're going to be putting that on, then you should show some reverence and respect for where it is that it came from. Recognize the fact that entire peoples were massacred. People died, smallpox blankets and whatnot. Okay. In order for you to have this costume today, like really show appreciation and recognition for what it is that you're doing and who it is that you're imitating. So that it's not, you're not making light, being the slutty fill in the blank. Okay. Because that's also what happens a lot to a lot of things. The genie costume is one of those that I feel people don't actually acknowledge is appropriation. There's an entire set of culture, and I don't want to use the word because it is a slur, But there's an entire segment of people who that is their culture. And basically the reason why it's something that we have appropriated, especially in this country, is because it's sexy. And so, you know, you got the midriff and the see-through shit and all of that, whatever, and the thing and so forth and so on. You are imitating a culture that you have absolutely no understanding of because of some TV show that some white lady played once upon a time and made it like a magical, mythical creature, like she's a goddamn fairy. So like that.
So no, you're good. Go ahead, finish.
Differently.
Say that. What was the last part?
It's something that we want to do differently.
Okay.
That's
So
what,
I don't want to. I feel, because I feel like some people may not know the people that you are speaking about. I want to use. Thank you. The Romani people.
well, there's
no,
two separate cultures. Separate cultures that
I
are being
didn't realize
imitated
that
there.
that was a slur.
But yes.
So
No,
but
Romani
yes,
is
the
not
traveling.
the other one.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah,
Okay.
and might I also add, Romani is not the only
say
one.
it just for education and people not get offended?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. We're
gypsies.
talking about gypsies, but they are known as the Romani people. So
Some of them, because they also are tribes. So there are different kinds.
Right.
There are different sects and segments and so forth that practice differently. So there's that part. And then there's also a portion of another part of a culture, which is folks in India, where some of it is Hindu culture, some of it is like, so there's a lot of that kind of imitation and appropriation going on. But the reason why a lot of it has gone spread differently is because specifically when it comes to the Romani and other tribes, sects of that particular culture, is because if they were nomadic. They were a lot more nomadic than the Indian people. And so, but you'll look in that portion of the world or that segment of the world, and there's a lot of that in that entire area. And that's why. And we don't give that the proper credence that it should have, that these are in a lot of different ways. These are, you know, some of the dancing, those are cultural things that they do. If there's a religious aspect, there's a spiritual, I shouldn't say religious, that's the wrong word, the spiritual aspect to a lot of how that happens. You know, back in the day, and I say back in the day because I really don't remember exactly when it was, but we might remember Madonna doing the bindi thing and doing the dot on her forehead.
Oh yeah,
like I think 2000s era. Yeah.
And everybody thought that was cool, with no recognition to the entire culture of people that was really significant to. And don't get me wrong, supposedly Madonna was actually trying to practice that religion. But you know, it's a thing that we tend to do with no real understanding or reverence or respect to where it's coming from. We just look at stuff and it's like, oh, that's cool, or oh, that's sexy, or whatever, and we turn it into a costume. And that's why I'm saying the respect part is we need to do that differently.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would
Moana,
actually.
sorry, go ahead. Nope.
I was just thinking that you know, really the definition of appreciation could come down to not having any sort of imitation at all, but being on the line of the conversations that we have just had. Just like someone says, well, there's art appreciation and there's, you know, this like appreciation for this. It doesn't mean you have to dress up. It doesn't mean you have to do the thing or imitate the thing that you are enjoying. It just means that you have decided to learn more about it or to take in what you're seeing and have that emotional or artistic reverence to it without saying like, I have to do that. And I think that this is such a big conversation. I mean, it's obviously always been a thing. And even with what Moana was talking about and what Cece referenced in terms of gentrification and it really appropriation being a certain group of people just taking and making money off of something on this grandiose gross scale. But if it comes down to appreciation, someone could go into a neighborhood and be like, you know what, this is amazing. And I want to make this a historic place that is recognizable and accessible to a lot of people. That is a completely different aspect than I want to come in and make money off of this. Or
Right.
someone saying, I appreciate this, you know, this native costume, and I want to publish it in my magazine because I need I need it to be accessible to more people because people need to know that this exists, versus I want to wear that costume and be seen in it, and then I become the me factor of how cool I look in it or what I can do in it. So appreciation, it's almost like you want it to be the opposite, like, oh, well, it's imitation with the research, which I've had many conversations, and including this one, about that. But realistically, once you decide that you want to own it without,
Paying your dues.
before the dues, yeah, just like, because sometimes we don't know, like, so Madonna, we don't know the length that she had gone through unless she did like a feature and did this whole like motif about it, or went back and talked about it afterwards. But if you have seen somebody, it's almost like cosplay progress is like my best thing to look at it. But if you've seen, maybe not in terms of cosplay, but if you've seen somebody who is like an appreciator of this thing, and then one day they're like, I got a chance to put on a kimono while I was in Japan, and you look and you're like, wow, this person is like studied it, knows a lot about it. Like, it may still be a little triggering, especially if people hadn't known that person before, but that part may never even come. The appreciation part was all really up until that part. So they tried it themselves, but you just look and want to share it first or only. And it's kind of not quite the opposite, because you're not trying it on yourself.
So that's been a fear of mine, right? So like, I'm a huge nerd, really into anime, was watching it raw on the international channel back in the day, was picking up words, took classes. So, there's a multifold thing there. But then also when I went to my first con, and it was actually for a college project.
Sure.
We had no, it was an ENG project, and we had to go out and do like a news segment. So I was like, I'm going to do mine on MTAC, and I got press releases and everything. And so I showed up in this, I had the shirt. It was a kimono style shirt with a little obi attached to it. Right. And now I think about today and I'm like, man, people could have really gotten me for appropriation, but they don't know the story behind my love for Japan. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I'm like, where do we draw the line? Would you all like to comment on that?
I think certain things have a proper context too. So like, also, for instance, like, you got the shirt, that's just the shirt. People might not think anything of it. And like, for instance, I have a dress for my Chun-Li cosplay, which I got from a Chinese woman who owned a store, and she had these dresses from China. So I was like, oh, I gotta get one. But then there's like, with HBCUs, right? We got the kente stoles. Like, that's very specific. Every Black person don't even get to wear a kente stole. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to have a specific honor or a specific title in order to even get that. I mean, of course, there's like an element of respectability politics for that. But even like, there's certain things that are specific for wedding traditions, certain things that are specific for, like I brought up the regalia, like certain headdresses you're not supposed to wear if you don't have a certain position in your tribe. So, like, everything in its proper context, I would say, in that aspect. And it's going to be certain things that you just can't do because it's not appropriate given the context of that piece or that element.
Yeah. But a big problem because I'm learning a lot of things, but what it seems to come down to is the problem is these things are accessible without any understanding of what they are. So if not necessarily the case, I'm going to say made in China, but I'm not talking about like the particular store you went to, Cece, but like everybody knows, like getting something off Amazon, the made in China thing that, or anywhere, can be made in whatever, but that mass produced version of something that really has a stronger significance and shouldn't be really available, that should almost be like your step one of, is this appropriation? Because if I'm able to get it on Amazon, but some people may have a problem with it, then more than likely it's probably not something that I should be ordering with, it with that context. And it doesn't even, it happens a lot with international and international cultural things, but it also happens just right here in our local community of person creates art, someone steals it and puts it on a shirt, and then they are able to get it, and they never know that it's comes from this young person who just has an Instagram and a Tumblr and is really just trying to do art, and all of a sudden their stuff is stolen just like that because of the internet.
So piggybacking off of what you said too, Renee, so I love to travel. I like to travel to Latin America, and so when you go there, they'll be like, hey, like official Colombian hat, or like get this thing, or get. And so I was at a liquor store one time and they had this in Mexico, and they had this egregious sombrero, like offensively big. And they were like, yeah, take a picture with this. And I was like, I'll do it because you all say so, but like, this is a picture I could never really post in the States because they'll be like, effing gringo, right? And so like, that's an example of like cultural exchange, but like, it gets dicey. And I feel like so many people are afraid to be canceled nowadays, and they just want to like,
well, you can go to
like have
Japanese
fun
or Korean festivals, and they have people who will put you in their outfits. Like you can dress like
kimonos
that in those spaces. Right. So, but again, because now we are very Americanized and other people don't know the context or the story of what, of where we were or what happened. But we do have a choice to keep those memories to ourselves and internally, and to keep that as something that we do. Not saying that we want to keep it secret, but not everything has to be out there for the clout. And before there was social media and stuff, even though I love it, it's been a big part of my career. Sometimes we could give back to like, I'm going to print this and put it in my scrapbook. And if anyone ever asks the question, my tight group of friends or family, I can say, well, I went to Japan, or, I went to Mexico and these people wanted me to wear it, and that, versus having to explain to Stacy, who you've never met in Montana, who's going to raise a big stink about something, and it's going to be a big deal. So, but like, that's my opinion on it. And I've also done the same. I love anime conventions. I love cosplaying. I have bought off Amazon a lot. I hate to admit it, but I mean, it's
just so easy.
It's the world we live in. It's convenient, and we do it. But I try. And I mentioned this in another panel I was in, as long as you're trying, like it's the trying and the understanding and the calling out when you see it happening the wrong way with other people. One fun thing was like, oh, I see that you're doing this thing. It looks very much inspired by blank, or insert this person, or insert this culture.
Yeah.
And just trying to keep that conversation going, even if not to prove the person wrong, but to give other people insight on where to research even further.
Well, Anna, do you have you have your 2 cents you'd like to give?
Oh yeah, I like the idea of the cultural exchange and having open conversations that are like avenues for us to learn from one another. It's a big part of why I started my podcast. I kind of initially was going to have it specifically towards Hawaiian culture only, but at the core, like I look at like peoples from all over the world, and there's just so much richness, very much like you. Like I love to travel. I've traveled to over 30 different countries. And you start to just see like different trends and traditions of cultures that you can see similarities. There are uniquenesses, of course, but there's always something so interesting to learn about different people in different areas of the world that, when it comes to appreciation, I think as long as you're not making it about you and look at look at me, look at me. And it's more about, look at this beautiful culture, look at this practice, look at how these communities operate, look at how they view, their worldview on different things. And what can I take away? What can I learn? And what can I apply, in my own life to kind of like show respect to that. And that's really, what I encourage people to do. I've always done that, especially growing up in a place where there has been multiple cultures. It's just something that has always been a part of me, and it's my small way of bringing myself to different areas of the world, especially out here on the East Coast, where Native Hawaiians are not very prevalent. There's some pockets out here, but it's my way of trying to bring my home to wherever I am, and how can I encourage other people to do the same. Because at the end of the day, we're all people trying to figure out this crazy life, trying to survive, trying to live, and trying to be happy doing it,
Yeah. Cool. All right. So my next question is, so I feel like Black people tend to be super sensitive when it comes to appropriation versus other cultures. And I think we all here understand why that is, because we've had ours stolen from us. We don't know where we came from. And so, like you guys said earlier, we put in cornrows and it's ghetto, it's ratchet. But then the Kardashians put in cornrows, and then all of a sudden it's cool, and they're getting written up in Vogue or Cosmo about like how this is the new trend, and we're like, hello, been doing it all along. So would you all like to speak about that?
I also would just like to add on that maybe this is a little bit selfish, but when I started seeing non-Black people, specifically white people, because other people, whatever, wearing wigs and selling wigs on Instagram, I also got a little offended, because I know like wigs are like straight hairs, like European look, all those things. But I was like, we've been doing this. Like, if I had known this was gonna, like, people need to know how to put a wig on, I would have made a YouTube video. Anyway.
But real quick to talk about wigs. I was watching, I can't remember where it was, like if it was on actual TV or on the internet, but there is someone in New York who makes wigs for Jewish women, and they're selling them for like $6,000 a pop, and they've been doing this stuff. And so it's like, clearly we aren't the only ones wearing wigs, but there's other things that happen, like, and let me look at my list here, like blackfishing on IG, people darkening their skin to be like
the lips.
Yeah. Or just trying to pass, and then they want to take it. And then the whole thing of them trying to portray themselves as like light-skinned Black people is just so eerie and bizarre to me in so many ways. It's like, you're cognizant of the colorism element, so you want to take advantage of that, but then you also want to take advantage of being affiliated with this culture. It's wild to me.
Well, I've just had a few. So my cousin does a podcast, and some white people really aren't cognizant of the colorism. I don't think they're first of all, like, they don't know. So there's this, my husband had a conversation with a coworker, and like Black famous people, they don't know. They don't, like Jamie Foxx. They didn't know Jamie Foxx until he was in Ray, until he put out an album with Kanye. They don't know the Jamie Foxx show. They were like, oh, really? He had a show? Like, yes, he had a show. They literally don't know our culture that way. Right. And so I give the benefit of the doubt, right? Grain of salt sort of thing. Go.
Fair enough. Oh, I know you was firing it back to me. Okay. So I feel the biggest thing I feel like for Black people in particular, and why we're so territorial about our stuff, like someone had mentioned before, is because we don't really get a lot of reciprocity when it comes to cultural exchange. Like, prime example, I was talking to someone the other day about like K-pop and Banchan, and how like a lot of K-pop's influence and stuff is basically like
From R&B and
hip-hop
rap.
and R&B and all that. And then of course, banchan, Koreans learn how to fry chicken from Black soldiers who were in, Korea, basically stationed in Korea. That's how they learned how to fry chicken, and thus banchan was born. And I thought about, it came to my attention one day, and I was like, there's a lot of money that Black people spend, for every dollar that goes out. It takes forever to circulate back into the Black community, and we spend a lot of money in other communities, but other communities don't spend a lot of money on us. They might invest in like cultural aspects, like they might get a do-rag or try to get some box braids or whatever the case may be, but they're not really investing in the culture, not just on a monetary level, but like on a human respect kind of level. So it's like they're almost, like you said, they're either just completely oblivious and just like, la, 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 little world, appropriating your culture, or they're like fully aware and they don't give a shit,
Yeah.
I want to say something that might not be very well accepted and might get me in trouble later, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Because that's what I do.
Go and say it.
I think a lot of appropriation is our fault when it comes to us. I think we hand out permission slips.
We do.
I think we hand out so-called Black cards. I think we hand out invitations to a cookout that ain't never gonna happen.
Yep.
I think that we do these things like you can be an honorary Black and have absolutely no experience, no understanding, no nothing except for that one day when you said something that was helpful. As opposed to having never in your life actually truly done anything to understand the struggle. We do this and then we have the audacity to get mad about it.
Like, but the sad thing is, it's like half people giving out those passes, their knowledge of the struggle is surface level too, And I might be permissive with that, but even in that, a lot of it has to do with, in my opinion, people wanting a seat at their quote unquote table. So they feel like if we give you a seat at our table, maybe we can get a seat at yours.
And it's already to a group of people that is used to getting and using resources of other people.
And stealing the whole damn table.
So when we just go and say, like they already knew the table was theirs. We just were like, you know what, this candle might make it look, and they're like, you made my table look so much better. And we shouldn't have even given them that plate or that candle or whatever it was. So I can kind of agree. And honestly, like possibly like hashtag guilty, because a lot of us, especially in the nerd community, we've probably been told, oh, you talk white, you do this white, or you do this because you like it. And it's like, I'm just living my life with the people who are around me. And I'm trying as I can broaden my spaces as an adult, and I can bring in more people who I associate with and on the base level look like, and on a deeper level really connect with, try to, build up what I can call my culture and things, and learning, it's not just handing it back over to, a white culture or to whatever that is. So I think it's, what is the thing? How could you say something so provocative?
So controversial, but
so controversial, so right. Yeah. So it's legit. I think it's correct. And we are now just trying to kind of like, not backtrack, because we want to have friends. We want them to support and know where the issues are and call those out. But we also need to like kind of train a next generation of people to know that what has been done and what is wrong, what continues to happen with stealing and appropriation, and, owning things just to rent them back out that you don't even, that's not yours.
Yeah.
And that's
Shay,
I'm sorry, that's the thing. I just want to say one more thing on it, because when you said the thing about the sombrero and all of that kind of stuff, and you look at all of the different ways, like, y'all travel, so I'm fairly certain you've been to, let's say, random island number 5 in the Caribbean. And as soon as you get off the plane, there's some chick out there trying to braid some white kid's hair. Okay. We know that that's not okay over here, but sis got to make her bag. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we're giving this permission out, and then we get mad because it's just like, well, why do we give permission? And that's the problem, because it's just like it's like when we're handing out, like I said, tickets to the imaginary cookout or whatever, and we're handing out, or Mexicans are handing out sombreros. It's a thing that happens because, to a certain extent, proximity to whiteness also includes inclusivity of whiteness, inclusivity of other. In order to feel like yours is worthy, we have to give some kind of inclusion opportunity to those who set the quote unquote standard. And what I want to say is, we need to recognize the value of what it is that we have. Like what Moana was saying earlier about Native Hawaiians not wanting to fight for theirs. That's a thing that comes with, I don't want to say should, but it's a worthy fight to have. And so stop giving up the land, stop giving up your culture, stop giving up pieces of yourself just so that you can have inclusivity and acceptance by these people who, by the way, aren't going to accept you as you are, even when they buy you.
Yeah. So real quick. So my husband and I are filmmakers, and that is a problem that we have within the indie community. I literally feel like all Black filmmakers, all they want to do is make films about the struggle and being in the hood and all that stuff. But they don't understand that we, along with people who aren't us, we are importing those images of us to other places. So when they see this, they're like, and you go, literally, my husband went to Thailand, right? And they saw him and they were like, yo, man, how's it going, man? And it's like, no, I'm the most cornbread Black guy from the suburbs. I mean, he also spent some time in the hood, but you know what I'm saying? But the majority, like, that's not me. So like, calm it down. You at a 10. I need you to be like, treat me like the white folks. Like, do that. So
right.
But we are running out of time. This was a great conversation. I really appreciated all of you all being here. There was so much more we could have talked about. Real quick, Cece, you talked about the box braids, and there was a story about this white girl in elementary school. Her best friend, Black girl, had box braids, and she saw them and she thought they were beautiful. And she was like, oh, I want those too. And she got box braids, and everybody was like, it was a big commotion, so much that it was in the news. But I was like, she saw her friend, she thought that was beautiful, she wanted to emulate her friend. And that's just on a small scale. And I understand you blowing that up and how big that can be. Clearly, Kim and Cosmo, as I mentioned earlier, but like, and they're little girls, like, leave her alone.
I hope the story was more about how amazing the Black girl's hair was and not the feelings of the white girl. Like, I know it wasn't, but like, that's where I always wanted to come back. Like, you're right. Newsworthy. Let's talk about how cool this little Black, who braided her hair, and how do we make more money go back to that lady who did it. And but
you're right. Hopefully. You're right. It wasn't, but okay. So ladies, give your well said. Give your social medias. Where can people follow you all? What are you guys up to? You got a few minutes for that. So Shay, Moana, you are unmuted. We'll start with you first.
Oh, okay. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at The Real Life Moana, and on the Moana Nui podcast. We stream live every Thursday at 7 and 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you enjoyed this panel, you will definitely want to come and listen to our podcast as we expand upon these topics with a lot of different creatives and creators that might be, some of your favorite comic people. Our cast is available on all the platforms. You can just look up Moana Nui podcast. Thank you.
All right. Renee?
Hey again, I'm Renee Cooper. Since this is Dragon Con, if you are on site, find the animation track in Galleria, Hilton Galleria 1. Just come on down and say hello, join a panel. We have some other panels going on site, and actually all the hotels throughout the weekend. But you can also follow me on Instagram at PeachyConPrincess, or on Twitter when I use it at PeachyMade, MADE. I'll try to do better, but if you tweet me, I will definitely tweet back. And yeah, that's where you find me.
All right, Cece.
I was like, I think I follow you already, Peachy Con. Okay.
You do.
CC the Geek on pretty much every platform. And that's 2C's the Geek. And then HBCUCon also on all platforms, and hbcucon.org.
Shay. Unmute.
There we go. Shay hyphen D, Athena Reigns, on the Facebook. Everywhere else, I am Raino Change. So at Raino Change on all of your Twitter, your Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. I don't have any videos yet. Don't at me. If you don't see any videos because I literally just started last month, and I don't know what I'm doing yet. So somebody's going to teach me how to use it, and eventually there'll be a video there. Also, you can find me once a month on Moana Nui, on the last Thursday of every month, doing Rain Talks. Also, the Metropolis Podcast Network. I have 2 podcasts, The Conversation, and the other is Ish, ISH, because I'm Ish. Fill in the blank. Ish.
You're the
And-
ish to with the, like
Yes.
shit, but rearranged like in a good way.
Yes. That. And that's all of my
And okay. And I have been your host, Sheena Wiley. You guys can follow me on at Sheena Alani on IG. You can also follow my show, George Box Office. We talk about the film industry and speak to people working behind the scenes. You can see that on you can watch the show on Amazon Prime, and you can also catch snippets of the show on YouTube, and follow at GBO_show on IG. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here. And that's it for this panel for DragonCon. We'll see you later.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.